Hello, Bill.
Good morning, Matt.
Welcome to the DMZ, everybody.
Friday, June 13th. It's an unsettling 24 hours. Not my favorite 24 hours in the past few months.
It's a weird time in general, though, Bill. I mean, you pick any 24 hours at random, and it's going to be a little eerie.
You know what is upsetting to me? I wrote a piece last week about Trump and Iran, where I was critical of Chuck Schumer, because Schumer was giving Trump a hard time for negotiating with Iran and complained that Trump was offering a side deal. And this was because of a report that Trump was offering some uranium enrichment in Iran temporarily as a transition to a system where the uranium would be enriched outside of the country. And he was saying Trump talks tough, and then and now Trump can get away with whatever they want. And I was like, this is. I'm not saying Trump's Mr. Art of the deal, but this is basic negotiating, and it's just pretty unseemly for a Democrat to be complaining that Trump is trying to actually create a peace agreement with Iran when Obama did the same thing. Now, Trump's a giant hypocrite for sandbagging Obama's deal and then trying to do something similar, but I'm not going to complain that he wants to essentially resurrect it, because we could really use it right now.
Yeah. Well, that's the same thing he did on NAFTA. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
right. Destroyed it and then basically signed a very similar deal.
Sure.
So,
I mean, if that's where we landed on Iran, great. I'm not going to complain about it. And before Israel was prepared to attack, and the report was that Trump got Netanyahu to stand down, I'm like, I'm not gonna complain about that. If that's the one good thing Trump does, you'll get my applause. I'm not going to be a knee-jerk partisan about it. But that clearly has failed. And on the Trump standard, Biden was the worst because he didn't have the respect of Putin to stop Putin from invading Ukraine. And now the world's on fire. We're headed towards World War III because Biden's a laughingstock who doesn't have the respect of world leaders. Okay, if I'm going to apply that standard today, you were literally trying to have a peace deal with Iran. You literally got Netanyahu to stand down before. And now Trump's going to turn to the skin and say, well, Iran didn't take my offer, so screw them. That to me doesn't wash.
So obviously we're recording this in the morning after Israel has attacked Iran, decapitated some of their top leaders, including nuclear engineers, experts, whatever. And all as part of an effort to derail their drive toward going nuclear completely. We may disagree on this, Bill. I think
you never liked the deal. You never liked the nuclear deal.
Well, okay, so I didn't like the Obama deal, but then I felt like at a certain point you got to stick with it once you've made the deal. So we kind of got the worst of both worlds, I think, with Trump. But from a standpoint of Israel, this Iran is a hostile regime. They are funding Hamas, and if Israel is actually able to stop their progress towards getting nuclear weapons, big if, I still think, I think that would certainly be a net positive. And I don't know where Trump fits into all of this. He obviously knew this was coming. But so I guess I'm cautiously optimistic that this is actually a net positive, a good development, even though I don't think it has a lot to do with Trump, except for the fact that Trump didn't stop it, right? I mean, presumably Trump could have stopped it if he wanted to.
And wanted to stop it, at least at some point. I can't be a super duper mind reader here. But I think he genuinely wanted a deal. He likes deals. He likes being seen. There is an argument that perhaps he really wants that Nobel Peace Prize. He wants to one-up Obama, get the Peace Prize. I don't know if that's literally his motivation or not. But I think he prefers peace to war. He wants the ribbon cutting. He likes to be the guy at the ribbon cutting. And doesn't mean I think he has all this great respect for human life. The way he treats people who he's abducted and thrown into prisons suggests otherwise. But I think he likes the adulation that comes with the deal. And so I don't think it was a head fake that he was pursuing a deal. I think he wanted a deal. And he was clearly very cramped in how creative he was going to be in proposing deals, and his juice to give him space to pursue that deal was too limited because he couldn't stop Israel from doing it.
Well, I think today he said, or yesterday he said, I gave them 60 days. Today was day 61, something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if this is Trump kind of claiming, hey, I gave you guys, I tried to do a deal with you. I grew impatient because you weren't, getting it done.
His offer was, so the Obama deal was, okay, Iran, you can enrich uranium for civilian energy use, but they have to be rigorously inspected to be sure you're not using this for nuclear weapons. And the debate around that was, how good were these inspections going to be? There were sunset provisions on it. So what happens after the sunset provision? Those were the debates about it. But that was the crux of the deal. As a digression, I should point out that early in Trump's presidential campaign, he had the Matt Lewis line, which was, I don't like this deal, but I will police that deal. That was his first statement on the subject. And then when the Republicans got given what for about that, he then moved to, I'm going to scrap the deal, which is what he eventually did. And at least the Americans pulled out of it. Other countries stayed in it. The offer he gave to Iran recently was, we'll enrich the uranium for you. We'll enrich the uranium for you off of Iranian soil, but you'll get it and you'll still get to use it for your energy purposes. But that way we know you're not going to use it for a nuclear weapon. If you could get someone to agree to that, great. It's not bad in and of itself, but Iran always showed a red line, issue of sort of national pride. Well, why don't we get to enrich our own uranium? Other countries get to do that. You're implying that we're somehow inferior or untrustworthy. Like, if you really wanted a deal, you still have two parties that are saying we're okay with an arrangement where Iran has nuclear energy but not nuclear weapons. Like, you have a basis for an agreement there, and if you wanted to work it, you could still work it. And Mr. R, the deal person, wouldn't say 60 days and then we're done. Like, that's not how negotiations work. And certainly not with Iran. Iran is known for being very, very, stubborn and using a lot of brinksmanship. Like, it takes a long time to get deals with Iran. And it may be that you can decimate their program with missile strikes, drone strikes. There was a debate about that, whether too much is underground to debilitate in that way. But best case scenario, let's say you do it. There's still probably going to be repercussions. It's not like everyone's saying, well, but Israel won that one. I guess we're all going to go about our lives now and not do anything bad anymore. We know that there's a great deal of tenacity amongst Israel's haters, which is why you want to have peace agreements and not perpetual war, because you have terrorist attacks inside Israel, terrorist attacks outside Israel.
I think, and this may just be the spin, but I think the argument is that this allows, like, Netanyahu and Israel a chance to basically end the October 7th thing, right? Basically terrorists come in, kidnap their people, hold them hostage, kill a lot of them. Israel has to have some, I hate to say revenge, but there has to be some conclusion to this. And so by going after Iran, who is a state sponsor of terrorism, and this allows Netanyahu to say, like, okay, mission accomplished, because you're not going to, otherwise you have to really completely flatten Gaza. Like that's the other option,
I
right?
mean, I think Gaza is not in great shape. I mean, I don't want to be glib about this, and I'm not saying I endorse Israel's approach to this because I don't. Um, but I mean, these guys don't know how to take a win. I mean, they've already severely rolled back Hamas and Hezbollah to the point where Iran has less leverage in the region. I would think that makes it pretty ripe for a nuclear deal. I mean, Israel seems to want to have Abraham Accords. They seem willing to break bread with other previous enemies when they think they have the leverage. I think trying to layer, military victory on top of military victory is completely it ignores all the history of the region. I mean, we're dealing with folks who work with long historical memories. They're not going to just say, "Well, I guess we lost. I want to not bother you anymore." And
I mean, there will be blowback to some degree,
for
but the
years.
question,
I mean, I don't think it's going to be maybe tomorrow. It could be 5 years from now. I mean, October 7th happened because Hamas was responding to something that happened 2 years ago and prior.
Mhm.
And Israel, kind of got their eye off the ball, thinking, "Yeah, we got them contained. We don't have to worry about this stuff."
But I think the philosophy is the jungle grows back, or you've got to constantly be mowing the lawn, or whatever the crude analogy is that I'm sure is controversial. Like we live in a dangerous world. Israel's surrounded by people who are adversaries at best, and they're going to perpetually have to be vigilant to preserve this like democracy in the desert. And I think I think there's a sense that this is going to make it more likely they can get other countries to sign on to the Abraham Accords. And apparently Iran, they assume, are irredeemable, that they were not somebody you could make friends with.
That's been Netanyahu's MO from the beginning. And by all accounts, the Obama deal was working and the inspections were happening. And they hadn't, shortened their time frame where the so-called breakout period where they could so quickly get a nuclear weapon. It's after Trump pulled out of the deal that Iran did shorten their time frame and put them in the position where we are in today. So, I mean, obviously, the Iranian government are not, pleasant characters, and you can't be sanguine about working with them. But I think there was evidence that you could, to a limited degree, and perhaps build on it. But that wasn't. So even though, I mean, from my perspective, you had some reason for initial optimism. See if you can work it and change behaviors, and build on it. And that wasn't tried. And Trump tried to try it very briefly and gave up quickly.
Yeah. I do want to, and I don't want to get bogged down in Iran too long because it's obviously not my expertise. But, I wrote a piece at the LA Times last week making the point. I mean, look, I'm not a Donald Trump fan. I think that's pretty obvious. But some of his, the madman theory, there is, I don't know if you saw this, Bill, but there was a CNN report where they interviewed one of the hostages and, that was released from Gaza. And he said that his captors were rooting for Kamala Harris to win. And that as soon as Donald Trump got elected, this hostage's treatment was immediately better. He started getting more food because they were afraid of Donald Trump. This is from CNN, not Newsmax, right? Not OAN.
But it's one person's anecdote.
It's one person, right? So, but again, somebody who's a credible in the sense of having, actually, it's anecdotal, but, there's someone who literally was just released, not a random Joe Blow on the street. So somebody with kind of a vested interest, who I don't think would be carrying partisan political water necessarily. or lying about this, right?
Well, I mean,
So
there's
the point just being like, I don't like Trump, but I do think that there is something to be said for the fact that he seems strong and dangerous to these people, and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden do not.
well, I don't think that Biden or Kamala have uh, innate weaknesses in this regard. Um, the fact that Joe Biden did stand up to Putin, I think, belies that. You might say, well, that he invaded, okay, but then, I mean, for Biden to say, I'm going to get into a proxy war with Russia is not a small thing.
Yeah.
So to think that sort of he can be easily pushed over, I think that data point strongly counteracts that. But the madman point has a certain credence to it. I mean, anytime you're going to a negotiation, you need to be able to make credible threats. If you don't do a deal with me, this bad thing's going to happen to you. You've incented to work with me to avoid this other circumstance. And so being seen as a crazy person who might do something violent to your country, that can be leveraged if at a base level you're not actually mad. You have rationality and actually have an interest in finding a way to get to have the soft landing. And the problem with Trump is that I think he's actually mad and is not a rational actor, and his word is no good. Like, you really can't take his word on anything. And that makes it very hard
Yeah.
to do deals.
No, I agree. And look, part of the premise of my column was, wouldn't it be awesome if we could take the good stuff that Trump brings without all the bad stuff? But that's just impossible because he has a mix of all of these things, mostly bad. But there are some elements that I think the projection of strength can accomplish. And look, we're not dealing with rational people. I mean, these terrorists are just primitive, evil people. And it may well be that a Barack Obama can talk very rationally and diplomatically, but then unleash hell in the form of the United States Marines. But that just doesn't translate the same way, because these horrible, primitive people, they understand Donald Trump. They get the way he communicates, whereas I think that they mistake normal politicians' sort of diplomatic rhetoric as a sign of weakness.
I don't assume you intend this, but let's be clear that no one's saying, or at least we're not saying, the entirety of the Arab world or the entirety of the Persian world are primitives.
No, I'm talking about the terrorists specifically, who are like who went into Israel, on October 7th. That is specifically who I'm talking about. Those were the people who, when Trump was elected, became fearful,
right,
according to this one former hostage.
And I'm not going to, I mean, Israel had every right to respond militarily to Hamas. I think it went well beyond surgically focusing on Hamas and wreaked, violence on innocent people. But even if you're going to say, well, at least Israel gained leverage from doing that, they're not people they messed around with, so you might as well do a deal with them. At some point, you actually have to do the deal for that the madman theory still has to lead to a peace agreement for it to have any kind of lasting, sustainable, positive effect. But that doesn't seem to be where the current Israeli government is at. Like, they don't want deals. They want to have dominance through military might, and because they have such deep skepticism and revulsion because they don't believe these countries are people that they can deal with. They just don't. And I think that's short-sighted. And even if they can win these military victories today, I worry greatly about what it means for tomorrow. And not just for Israel, but for America, because we're going to be seen as complicit with it.
Well, the only, caveat I would say there is that although the Iranian, I'm certainly wouldn't attack the Iranian people, but I do think that the regime itself is a radical, religious, extreme, regime.
Mhm.
And so I'm not sure they can be trusted to negotiate in good faith.
We do want to other things, correct?
We got other stuff.
Okay.
Alex Padilla, U.S. Senator from California, on I guess it was Thursday, he goes to a press conference being held by Kristi Noem, and the problem is we don't have the whole video, but once the video that I've seen, well, the video that I've seen begins with Padilla basically kind of walking toward the podium and immediately being kind of accosted by Secret Service, who start pushing him.
Yeah.
And at that point, he identifies himself. I'm,
Right.
California U.S. Senator Alex Padilla. So, what's being alleged is that he interrupted an event, he was being disorderly, and that they didn't know he was a senator, that he didn't identify himself, that he like lunged toward the podium. I don't think we have enough video evidence to say exactly if that happened, but what we do know is that a sitting U.S. senator in his own state was manhandled, thrown to the ground, and handcuffed after all of that happened after he identified himself.
Yep.
What say you, Bill Scher?
Well, I mean, I think we can tell from I saw the video, I think like 3 different angles. So he was interrupting. That's clear.
Yeah.
He crashed the event and wanted to interrupt. We don't have any video of him lunging at her physically.
And by the way, I believe that Noem, that what sparked his interruption, where he allegedly was going to ask a question, but I believe that Noem had basically said, we're here to liberate the people of California from their government, or something like that. That she was being
which is crazy, which is a crazy statement.
Very, and I don't have the exact wording here, but it sounds like she was, throwing this weird narrative about California government, which I think is inappropriate.
No, I think I do actually have that. I thought I did. I thought I posted on Blue Sky, but maybe I didn't. But it was literally, we're going to liberate California from socialist governments in the state and in the city, something like that.
Yeah,
and
inappropriate.
Yeah, I mean, these are elected governments;
weird.
These aren't dictatorships.
Yeah.
So I highly doubt that Padilla was going to bum rush the stage and physically attack. Now, I understand you have protection for an elected official. FBI, whoever was on the security detail, didn't recognize Padilla by face. Appropriate to make sure that the Homeland Security Department head's protected. I get that. But without there's no weapon. Nothing's being said that constitutes a verbal threat. Beyond getting between the person, between the two people, something bad can happen. Manhandling is not required. And even to the extent you do that initially, not knowing any better, as you say, once hands are in the air, I'm a senator, everything should sort of drop and say, okay, well, show me your identification. Like there's not even that, and this is thugocracy. I mean, this thuggish behavior is signaled from the top. I mean, Trump's been at rallies for years talking about punching people and dragging them out and giving them what for if they ever protest or heckle at an event. So that clearly gets absorbed.
Yeah, this is their MO. I mean, this is who they are. They're bullies. They're assholes. They're authoritarian, fascisty. And what bothers me too, Bill, and look, the Secret Service, obviously they've got a serious job. Obviously there are real threats, but how much of this is trickling down now to the military and to the police? This attitude. We saw videos of soldiers behind President Trump sort of catcalling and hissing and being political in a way that's not just respectful clapping. There's obviously this big parade. There's going to be a counter parade, the No Kings protest. But I'm just wondering, like, how much of this attitude that Trump and his minions have has trickled down to the people who are charged with protecting him and protecting us.
I mean, Trump has been supportive of unrestrained policing going back to the Central Park jogger case when he ran that full page ad in the New York Times and basically said that we're sort of shackling the police. And I'm not a police abolitionist. We need police, but police have to follow the law too. And Trump has long been in favor of essentially a form of immunity for all policing, no matter how rough it gets. I think it's deeply ingrained in him, and he wants the federal government, the federal authorities, law enforcement authorities, to operate that way.
Except unless you better believe if they ever did it to him or his team,
which we
then
know from January 6th.
Yeah.
I mean, neither one of us really like trafficking in histrionic language, doomsday talk. We don't throw around the word fascist in a glib way. But it's very hard to not call a spade here. I mean, this is what authoritarians do. And like I still believe, I don't think we live in a fascist state. We still have an independent judiciary. We still have judicial orders that at the Supreme Court level, I think the Trump administration, by and large, feels obligated to follow if they try to get cute with it as much as they can. We have other forms of elected governments that have their own authorities. It's just a simple, plain fact that state and local governments are not legally obligated to assist in enforcing federal immigration law. It's just a fact. And so federal government can't make everybody kiss their ring. I don't believe in broad states' rights. I side with Andrew Jackson over South Carolina when they had their trade dispute. I don't believe in nullification. But there are limits to federal government power, and that's a good thing.
But a lot of the people who are totally okay with what Trump is doing wouldn't support it if, a Democratic administration started messing around, with the state and local police and telling them what they can. I've
been states' rights talk from Republicans for my entire adult life, exception of abortion, until the Trump era, where now it's just whose team are you on? And if you're
except for abortion, now they're okay. Right. They're okay with it when it comes to abortion.
Our exceptions go beyond abortion, beyond gay marriage, and now apply to whatever MAGA wants, MAGA should get. And if you're a governor or a mayor who's not MAGA, then here come the National Guard and the Marines.
Well, two heavy topics. Let's end on something slightly less, controversial. David Hogg, who I guess he's stepping aside from his role with the DNC after the DNC had somehow outmaneuvered him, right? He was elected to be deputy chair or something or other.
Vice chair.
Vice chair. Bill with the term of art nomenclature. Then they somehow decided, there's another election now.
I'm not totally steeped in this, but they have the DNC has rules about gender representation. And so if I understand correctly, the election for vice chair didn't follow the proper procedure where if somebody had lost, if one of the men lost a race, they would then have to compete in a race where other women were in the race. And forgive me if I'm botching it or garbling it. And so they said they had to negate the election that Hogg had. And
so you're saying DEI policies are finally helping the Democrats out in elections.
Yeah. So I believe he and Malcolm Kenyatta were elected in this way. Again, forgive me for getting it wrong, but I think both their elections were nullified. They had to rerun it in a way where if one of them loses, then they have to run against women for that second slot. And Hogg basically decided, I'm not even going to play. I'm not even going to throw my hat back in the ring. He could have. I think he recognized he had probably worn out his welcome, was going to lose that race. And that's where we are, which I think is a perfectly fine outcome. I'm not aware of an argument that this isn't the rule that should be followed. I think there was an argument that maybe we botched that one, but we shouldn't turn back the clock on it. Or those thinking that this is just something they pulled out of their hat because they don't like David Hogg. I like David Hogg.
I think this is a win-win. David Hogg got to raise his stature, get attention, and now he's not burdened with the responsibility of having to save this party that seems to be floundering. And the Democrats got rid of David Hogg, who seemed like a real fly in the ointment and potential problem. So win-win. Everybody got what they wanted, I think, from this deal.
Well, I don't consider the Democrats to be floundering. I think the Republicans are more floundering than Republicans are. I think Republicans were floundering more than Democrats are. Democrats doing quite well in the special elections to date.
Well, and they may be poised for a big comeback, but for now, things they don't seem great.
I mean, they have wounds to lick. They have people who don't think they're being as strong as they could be. But some of those people might be pretty happy with Alex Padilla right now, or they're happy with Cory Booker's, quasi filibuster thing. It's not like there's no lack of appetite for fight here amongst Democrats, and you don't want that to be overshadowed with stupid infighting over dumb things, which this was. David Hogg wants to play in primaries. He shouldn't be in the DNC. Go run a pack and play in primaries. Go for it. So in that sense, I think this is a proper resolution, and Hogg has the more stature than he did before to run that pack. He didn't really need the vice chair position to do that. I think the whole thing about pushing, younger candidates, well, it's going to happen organically anyway. People are going to retire. Younger people are going to get in the mix, and you don't really need to make this overly provocative and combative. But hey, primaries happen, and as long as you do it in an above board way without being scorched earth, it's not debilitating to a party to have primaries. And they should have a good midterm, regardless.
All right. Final thoughts, Bill?
I'm always watching closely the reconciliation process. You talk about floundering. I see a lot of floundering there. Republicans don't really seem to be on the same page still, even after the House bill got passed. The Senate wants to go a different direction. How they stitch it together seems to be pretty murky to me. Not to say they can't get there, but it requires fealty to Trump to paper over their substantive differences. And if the substantive differences get too much attention and Trump's standing sinks, that becomes harder. I think Trump has stabilized his popularity. It's not good, but it hasn't continued to go down because the stock market stabilized and the price hit from tariffs hasn't bitten really hard yet. But I still think it's foolish to think that we're out of the woods there, and that this isn't a slow-moving train wreck. So that could still happen. But it may be that if they can get a reconciliation deal in a month's time before the economy blows up, and that would make it easier to paper over their differences. So again, I'm not saying it's a 0% chance they get a deal. It may even be better than 50-50 at this point, but it's a long way to go because the differences in the Senate go in different directions. It's not all moderates and all conservatives. It's both sides, nitpicking at it, and whatever changes they make could piss off folks on the House side. So I'm still watching that closely. And the other thing I'd point out is I do have a piece up at the Washington Monthly today about Trump's immigration strategy, which I think the numbers show is a failure. And he has not deported as many people as his predecessors have. His focus on crime is a joke. He had a good model, which was the Obama model, which did actually focus on serious criminals and was actually working. And Trump's going about things in a far more indiscriminate way. And the reason why you have these uptick in protests in California is a shift towards workplace raids, which is not going after serious criminals, it's going after people who are working and who are not criminals, which is what a lot of people didn't think Trump was going to do. People thought, oh, I want to get rid of criminals. I want to get rid of rapists and murderers. That's not what workplace raids do. So
now he's talking about how the farmers are complaining and the hotel owners are complaining because some of their really good workers who've been here for 20 years are being deported. So we have to look into that. Did you see that?
Yeah. If I didn't hear Trump say that. If he's saying that, it's
put
like,
it on.
We got to find the guy who did this. He's the one doing it, and he's making farmers' life worse with tariffs. I mean, all these things are like direct assaults on the economy.
Yeah,
which is just stupid.
All right, this is a callback to our earlier conversation. Don't you think, though, Bill, some of Trump's policies on the border, as well as his harsh immigration crackdown, is having like a chilling effect where people are self-deporting or simply not coming to America? And so some of what Trump is accomplishing in terms of stopping immigration, stopping even criminals from coming, is hard to quantify because it's the hand that doesn't clap or whatever.
Biden shut down the border first. Biden, you can complain that it took him too long, but he did it. Those policies were already in place, and border crossings had gone down dramatically before Trump was inaugurated. I can't. There's no way I can separate out those Biden executive orders and whatever intangible effect is having from Trump doing what he's doing. But again, it's sort of analogous to Israel. Like, you've already flattened Gaza. Okay, however horrible that was, I'm not justifying it, but you did it. And so you now have leverage for other things because you did it. Biden already done the harsh thing on the border, which you can also criticize went too far, but he did it. Why do you want to now take a guided missile towards the hospitality industry and the agriculture industry and the construction industry while you're also making their lives worse with tariffs as well? You don't need to do that.
All right. Check out Bill Scher's writing at Washington Monthly. Check me out at the LA Times and The Hill. Bill Scher, always a pleasure.
Same here, Matt Lewis. Take care.